hello to you, sir. How are you doing today?
I am doing great and fine and happy. And you,
Doing the best I can, like we all are.
you're right.
And so you're in Toronto.
I'm in Toronto right now. Yeah, we it was finally announced that we're season 4 has been picked up for Star Trek Discovery. So we begin filming November 2nd, and we all had to get here early enough to quarantine for 2 weeks and
Hmm.
and then do fittings and rehearsals and whatnots. So we're in the middle of all that now.
Amazing. Well, before we get to Star Trek, I want to go because that's what's happening now. I want to go all the way back to the beginning because I'm very interested in your entire career.
Oh,
And so I think you moved to Hollywood from Indianapolis, Indiana,
correct.
in 1985.
19.
I have to imagine that came with a lot of feelings of outsiderness, of feeling like you're on a completely different planet and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Well, I grew up in Indianapolis, but by the time before I moved to California, I was living in a small town in northern Indiana called North Manchester. It was 6,000 people big, and I
Okay.
was the advertising director for the newspaper there. That was my first job, my first career type job out of college. And so going from a 6,000 people small town to the tens of millions metropolis of Los Angeles was absolutely a jaw-dropping, life-changing experience.
I can imagine. And I'm curious how often you return to that feeling over a career that spanned decades of playing, of playing creatures and monsters and these otherworldly beings. I'm wondering how often you've returned to that feeling of maybe, and right now you're playing someone who's literally blasted off to another planet. I'm wondering how often you return to that over your career.
It comes in handy when playing scenes that involve uh, leaving it all behind or whatever.
Hmm.
In fact, in Star Trek Discovery, my character Saru left his home planet of Kaminar and was told he could never return because we were a pre-warp society. And if I wanted to join Starfleet, it was a quiet hush hush thing where I just disappeared and went off with them, never to return. So in playing those scenes where I'm looking down at my village and thinking, oh dear, here I go. I could draw back to a time when I was in Indiana thinking, oh, this move to California is going to be huge. I am allowed to visit back home again is the difference. But it's a change that you have to live with, a big one. Yeah.
And when you think back to, before you even moved or before you even thought that it was possible, do you remember the movies that really opened up to you the possibilities of physical acting, the movies that sort of inspired what a wordless prosthetic performance could be?
Well, yes, the original uh, Universal monsters, the black and white movies that everything from Frankenstein, Creature from the Black Lagoon, Wolfman, Dracula.
Hmm.
Those were my jam as far as what excited me as a kid in that genre. Um,
Hmm.
and my first horror film I ever saw was The Mummy with Boris Karloff.
Hmm.
Haunted me, and but I never saw that wasn't the career path. I didn't look at those movies and think I want to do that.
Hmm.
What I wanted to do was the funny, silly, goofy comedy.
Hmm.
Growing up watching sitcoms and variety shows like the Carol Burnett Show and Mary Tyler Moore and Bob Newhart, Dick Van Dyke, I Love Lucy, Gilligan's Island, Gomer Pyle, all that, because I could relate to those characters that were not the typical leading pretty people, but more the character looking people that had something funny to do or, uh, you know, so my dream job would have been a low responsibility supporting character on a sitcom where I could come into the room, do an armpit fart, say something funny, and leave. That would have been my dream
That's the
job.
dream. That's a dream for a lot of people.
Right.
Sounds good.
So when I went out to Hollywoodland in 1980, March of '85, that was the ultimate goal. Now, mind you, the reason that Mrs. Laurie and I moved out to California, or the excuse to move,
Hmm.
was getting a job at a bank.
The complete opposite of an acting career. It
Oh
was
my
working
gosh,
at a
yeah,
bank. Yeah.
square peg, round hole,
Hmm.
absolutely. Her uncle lived in California and worked for a bank, and said, if you send me your resume, I can give it to our HR department and you can set up an interview if you're thinking you want to move out here. So I did, he did, they did. I interviewed well, thank heaven. But once we moved out in March of '85, we resettled, we rent an apartment in the San Fernando Valley of LA. And I start going to work at this bank every day going, oh my gosh, what have I done? Right? It's such the wrong fit. Little pieces of paper, numbers, loss prevention, things like that an artist just doesn't think about or care about that much.
Yeah, or never wants to deal with. Like in that,
that's someone else's.
Exactly.
Someone else is good at that. So the bank caught on to this. So 8 months after they hired me, they fired me, and they should have. I patted them on the back for that decision.
Yeah, you made the right choice. Yeah.
Right. And so I was able to go on unemployment checks for a minute and start taking a TV commercial acting class. Now I had my bachelor's degree was in radio and TV broadcasting with a minor in theater from Ball State University in Indiana. So I've never had my eye on banking in the first place, so that's fine. But with that degree, it was more theater, more stage. I hadn't done a lot of on camera, and I got some advice in LA from another actor that TV commercials might be where you want to focus your attention because you're an unknown face. And unknown faces are used more in commercials. It's more about the product, not the actor. So I thought, okay, what do I have to do? So I got the Dramalog magazine. This is before the internet was a thing, right? So once a week, the Actors newspaper came out called Dramalog. It's now called Backstage. And every Thursday I waited for that, and it had casting notices in it for free student films or short film or corporate videos that might pay a little bit, extra work, acting classes, photographers, anything an actor needed was in that newspaper once a week. So I looked for TV commercial acting classes that would actually help me get to understand that world. And so I audited 5 different classes and went for free that allowed that. And I went back to the one that I really connected with the teacher. That teacher was a man named Philip Carr. The workshop was called the LA Commercial Workshop. And he was the guy who got me. You know, he had a great sense of humor, and he was there was something about him that had such a wise understanding of actors about this teacher. Well, turns out I'm back from my second class with him. Afterwards, he says, "Do you have an agent yet?" And I said, "I don't know what an agent really is."
An agent, like the FBI?
Yeah.
What is it?
Like for real estate? Yeah. Insurance agent? I don't know. So he hands me his card and he says, "Well, give me a call at the office and we'll talk about it." Mm-hmm. Well, his card, he was the vice president of the Wilhelmina Agency in Los Angeles, which is a big modeling agency in New York. They have a TV commercial in LA that was in the top 10 in the city. Lo and behold, I fell into the right hands without even knowing it. And he liked what I was doing in his class after just 2 weeks, and then brought me in to meet all the other agents, and we all fell in love with each other. So I had my TV commercial agent right off the bat. I didn't even have headshots taken yet, had no resume put together, just green as green can get. So started going out on commercial auditions about once a week maybe. And 6 months later, I booked my first commercial the same week that my 6 months of unemployment ran out.
Well, there you go.
Talk about godly timing.
Hey, kismet, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So and that first commercial was a Southwest Airlines commercial. I played a dancing mummy in it.
The mummy. There you go. That was
exactly. No, exactly. There is a full circle thing to this. And I didn't care what the job was. I got my first gig, and it was my Taft-Hartley into the Screen Actors Guild. So it's like, okay, I'm on my way. And so then after that, once I got my SAG eligibility, then my commercial audition rate went way up, and so I started booking more and more things right away. So in my first year, I booked maybe 6 commercials, and that was great. But the fourth booking that I got was the Mac Tonight campaign for McDonald's. Mm-hmm. That was the crescent moon head that sits at a piano and sings, "Hey, when the clock strikes, hey."
Oh yeah.
Right. So that campaign booking that, unbeknownst to me, was kind of the catapult that took me into the creature world, more than me watching old movies when I was a kid, thinking I wanted to be a monster.
Who'd have thought it was McDonald's that propelled you into the monster
I think
world?
it was McDonald's. Yeah, yeah, but because the creature effects team that worked on me, headed up by Steve Neal, they were great, and we all liked working with each other. I apparently I performed well, and I also this is a big one. I did not complain. Most actors are like, we're known for being divas that are like, this is hot, get it off me, ew, it's sticky, ah. And since I wasn't doing that, they thought I was the nicest actor they had ever met. so the referral process started. Whenever any tall, skinny alien thing, because all the creature effects world is a small family in LA. Every people from all the shops kind of know each other. And so when we need somebody with a long, skinny neck for this alien thing, or this creature, this insect, overgrown thing, whatever. So if my dimensions came up in a meeting, then my name came up in that meeting, and the tall, skinny Rolodex would come out like, oh, let's call Doug.
Number one, yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of how I got into that world. And meanwhile, still auditioning and still doing jobs with my own face, whether it was TV commercials and then guest starring on a little sitcom here or there, but all forgettable things that I'm not known for at all. But it was the creature world, the playing monsters, that got me one referral after another into a bigger and bigger projects, until I meet a director like Guillermo del Toro.
How long did it take for you to sort of accept that as your niche? Like, because you said that wasn't your goal. It wasn't your goal to be a creature effect person. But at what point were you like, maybe this is my path, maybe this is my trajectory?
Well, I think it was when I accepted that acting is acting. It doesn't matter what the role is or what you look like in it. So to separate, oh, this is creature acting and this is people acting. I think that's the mistake that I was making at the beginning, where it's like, nope, it is all from one extreme to the other and all the gray area in between. An actor has to prepare the same, take on the wants, needs, fears, loves of that character, whether it's human or not, and take on his physicality, whether it's human or not, and wear the costume and makeup for that character, whether it's human or not. So I kind of categorize it all the same now, and I just kept saying yes. And when you keep saying yes, and people like what you're doing, they're going to offer you that kind of role again. So a niche was created without me knowing it, and I've never been like, oh, I hate this. It's all been good. It's all been good, and I guess the older I get now that I'm 34 years into my career, I would like to explore more humans, but just for the simple reason that the discomforts and challenges that come with heavy layers of rubber, latex, and silicone. When I do jobs without all that extra layer, it's kind of liberating and kind of nice.
To jump into some specific roles, 1992, you were Batman Returns. And yes. You were not only in Batman Returns, you got to get whacked in the head with an umbrella by Penguin, and that's a small moment in the movie that's memorable. I'm wondering what memory from that set returns to your head the most.
Oh gosh, well, that was my first big studio film. I had done some background work on Hook right before that, and then kind of got an upgrade because I knew some people in the stunt departments that knew that I could put my legs behind my head. So Hook was my first time on a big studio lot, with huge stars like Dustin Hoffman, Robin Williams, Bob Hoskins, the list goes on. But I was not really. But it was such a huge cast and such a huge band of extra pirates that it didn't feel the same. But then from that, getting into Batman Returns. Now I'm a part of the cast, and now I'm being directed by Tim Burton himself, and working alongside Danny DeVito, He was in most of the scenes that we were often with him as in this Red Triangle Circus gang, but also Michelle Pfeiffer and Michael Keaton. And, and I got backhanded and slugged and beaten by both Michael Keaton and Danny DeVito. So no, that's a huge honor. And being on the Warner Brothers lot and just experiencing the big movie making thing. And, and when Batman Returns came out in theaters, it was the biggest box office opening weekend of all time at that time. So I knew I was a part of a big thing, and it was exciting and all those things you would think it would be. But then but it felt right. It felt like this is I like this experience. This is good.
Yeah, it's like more. I would like to do this more.
I'd like to do more of this. Absolutely.
I enjoy it. Yeah. When you get a role, a sort of a smaller role like that, how do you? Because obviously, I feel like every actor is going to want to do more. How do you balance this is my role in the film while still because it's a memorable role. How do you sort of balance I can't take over this scene, but I do want to make my mark?
Oh yeah, I don't know. I think I've never been a camera hog. In fact, I think less is more for me, honestly. So if I can be, I think supporting characters are important to a story because they really help push the main characters forward. So as long as I can do that effectively, I don't really elbow anybody else out for camera time but if it's a scene where I'm allowed to make a choice or do something special that puts my thumbprint on it, and that's all allowed or encouraged, I'm happy I love doing that. Yeah. But in Batman Returns specifically, though, we were kind of sidekick characters that were just kind of hanging around Danny while he did, all of his penguin-y stuff.
Exactly. And then a year later is Hocus Pocus. And
yes,
I saw that on Twitter you returned to the makeup. You put the makeup back on.
Just recently, yeah.
I'm wondering how strange that is. Because I assume that anytime you put on something like that, there's a surreal element to it. But is it strange 27 years later to be wearing the same makeup?
It was absolutely surreal. Now, Hocus Pocus was a great experience. Going back 27 years, it was such a great experience. Again, going from Batman Returns into this now big, huge Disney film with Bette Midler and Sarah Jessica Parker and Kathy and Jimmy was, another honor for me. And I was playing a more significant role. I was still supporting, but yet more camera time and kind of in a very memorable role too. So when the movie was being made, we were thinking, oh, we have a hit on our hands here. But then the studio released it in July of 1993, this Halloween film, family-friendly, built for kids, in July against all the summer blockbuster movies. And it was like, well, of course it tanks because it wasn't the right time of year and it wasn't up against the right things. Like the box office dollars were going elsewhere. So this is 93 was before the home video market is what it is today, before streaming ever started, before all the cable channels, that came out. So at the time I thought, well, there's our chance. It's gone, never to be seen again. Then it started airing on TV. A few years later, Disney Channel, Freeform Channel now, which used to be ABC Family Channel, all owned by the Disney company. And so they were just airing it and airing it and airing it. And so Halloween time, it became a cult classic over time. And we gathered an audience mostly from television viewing and home video market. We've gone through the VHS phase, the DVD phase, the Blu-ray phase, now the 4K phase, and streaming. Of course, Disney Plus has it. So one after another, our audience the net gets thrown wider and wider and wider. So now kids of our original audience are coming up with it. So we have a second generation of fans. So the movie's way more popular today than it ever has been in history, right? In its history. So to put the makeup back on again for this is for Bette Midler's charity, the New York Restoration Project. She's doing a big Halloween special, and that's October 30th, 8 p.m. And you can buy it's a $10 ticket. You can watch the whole show online. A cavalcade of stars, by the way. You've got Elvira hosting. You've got Glenn Close making an appearance, Meryl Streep making an appearance, Martin Short, Adam Lambert, Sarah Silverman. I'm missing a whole ton of other names, and all of us from the original cast of Hocus Pocus are all coming back in character to do a funny follow-up to the movie. So I contacted my original makeup artist, Tony Gardner, at Alterian Studios, and he still had the original wig on a dummy in the shop. He had found my costume that was on a dummy at one of our producers' houses. So we pulled myself back together, and he resculpted my prosthetic pieces, but it was the exact same picture perfect version of my face that was in the movie. I haven't gained a pound in 27 years. So we put this back on me, and it was like 3 minutes had passed in 27 years. I was flabbergasted, and it was a very heartwarming to see myself in the mirror as my dear beloved Billy again, and to take him on again, and yet just so surreal.
And it's an interesting point. You said it felt like, it was nice to see him again. I'm wondering how much these characters stay with you, because I have to imagine once you become one of these characters, and it's like a physical transformation, how much does that stay with you years after you take it off for the last time?
Right. Well, I'm one of those actors. I have been blessed with the ability to clock in and clock out at the end of a day. I don't. The character doesn't live in me. And that's good when you're playing, especially when I'm playing darker characters or bad guys in darker films. I don't want to live with that 24/7. I want to be able to do my job as an actor when the time calls for it, and then be able to step away from it and have a normal life. So I have been blessed with the ability to do that. But once I've played all my characters I've played over 34 years, I do grow an affection for them, for sure. Even the bad guys, I kind of have to fall in love with all of them in some way so I can play them properly. I want to understand them at a level that no one else does, because we're living in each other's skin for the moment, right? So we have to be family friendly with each other. So so I don't know, did that answer your question at all?
Oh no, totally. It's just so interesting to me, because I can't imagine what it is like for to stand up, look in the mirror, and you're just not you anymore. But inside the prosthetic, you are you.
Yeah. Well, you watch the whole process happening piece by piece as well. So it's not like it's just like a jolt to the who is that?
Who am I? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Your IMDb page is such a blast because of the way your career has gone. It's just, I totally forgot about that, or I totally didn't even know about that. And one of my favorite one of those examples is that not only were you in the severely underrated Mystery Men, but that performance was enshrined forever in the music video for Smash Mouth's All Star.
All Star, right.
I'm wondering how often that honor is brought up to you. How often you're reminded of the fact that you are in the music video for Smash Mouth's All Star.
It's almost funny how more people on social media now, that's where they have access to us. I get more comments about, oh my gosh, I just saw you in a Smash Mouth video. I get that way more than I do, I saw you in Mystery Men.
So, what I'm saying, it's underrated. People don't even know them at the movie.
Yeah. I know it was a very, very funny movie. I thought Greg Kinnear was hilarious in that. Ben Stiller, hilarious. It was a huge cast. Janine Garofalo, you got Paul Rubin. It was a huge cast of funny people. And I was just in the one scene. It was a little cameo. But you know who was in the cameo? The camera right before me was Dane Cook. Comedian Dane Cook was also, he was the Waffler.
And you were
another little hidden gem.
Pencilhead.
And I was Pencilhead.
Yeah, we erased crime.
Yes. And my 12-year-old son was son of Pencilhead in that.
Incredible. And it's funny because to just sort of piggyback off of these things that stay with you. A few years later, you do Hellboy. You do the first Hellboy, and 4 years after that, there's the sequel. And I've seen you say that your Abe is the most like you. You sort of relate to, of all your fantastical characters, you sort of relate to him the most. I'm wondering kind of what you mean, what you mean by that.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. I guess now that I'm playing Saru on Star Trek Discovery, he fits in that pocket too, and maybe even a better fit. But what it is about Abe or characters like that, he's more intelligent than me by a long shot. But he's the kind of intelligence that I hope to be one day, and he's also gentlemanly. And presents himself with a certain amount of decorum when he's in public or dealing with other people. And Abe's relationship with Hellboy. So Hellboy is this brute strength, like cussing, cigar smoking, beer drinking fellow. Abe is more the refined one who listens to classical music and reads books. And has a very, very, profound vocabulary, and he's got lots of great insights. And I also liked Abe Sapien, even though I am not clairvoyant in real life, but I love his empathy, where he has his hands that feel. He can tell what's on the other side of that wall. He can touch your shirt and know where it was before you had it. All those things. That's another. I don't have those gifts, but I do like to think of myself as an empathetic soul who likes to engage with other people and hear and find and feel their story.
And for the longest time, I know a lot of people, and I'm sure even on the other side, it seemed like you would be able to play that character a third time. It seemed like there would be a third movie.
And I'm wondering,
and I'm wondering what the process was like, was sort of accepting that, even just letting that possibility go. What was there because I'm sure that in the lead up, you're like, okay, it's going to happen one day. I'm going to be able to put that on again. I'm going to be able to play that character again. I'm wondering what it was like to just sort of realize that, okay, we're not doing the third Hellboy. And was that what that was like?
Yeah. Well, we all lived with some hope, for many years. And I don't know. Again, the decisions of why or why not are above my pay grade. So I don't know exactly what happened. I'm just a goofy actor that was waiting for some good news. But but by seeing, by watching Guillermo del Toro's Twitter account and Ron Perlman's, it looked like they had a meeting with all the powers that be. That was the final. It's here's the budget we're looking for, and here's the storyline, and here's what we would want if we could make this movie. And I think the answer came back from Studio Land. I don't know who they were talking with. That probably wasn't going to be it. And then shortly thereafter, the reboot happened. So the reboot was probably already in the works, is my guess. And once the reboot was announced and David Harbour was attached and a director was attached, that's when we all knew, like, oh, okay. So that's, I think, a part 3 for us is now not going to happen. So, but Ron Perlman and Selma Blair and I all were texting each other that day that the news came out, with lots of lovely huggles over text. And Ron said it best. The final text I got from him was, you know what, if we got 2 great movies and great friendships out of this, we did okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's all you can ask for. I mean, at the end of the day,
there you go.
That's going to remain. And it's interesting because in the middle of all that, between those 2 movies, you also made Pan's Labyrinth, which,
yes,
full disclosure, I feel comfortable telling you this now, that is my favorite movie. My favorite movie is Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, well, thank you. That's a lot of people's favorite, and I appreciate you for that very much.
And I want to talk about the Pale Man, because that's one of my favorite characters of all time. And it's just so interesting because you sort of learn that character's horrificness through what you see. There's no monologue or something like that. And I'm wondering how that falls onto your performance. You have to sort of tell the audience what they need to know about this character without words, just through movement. I'm wondering how you go about that for this character and how that bleeds into every other character you play.
First of all, with Pan's Labyrinth, my big stressor was that fawn character because of all the Spanish dialogue, paragraphs of exposition dialogue in Spanish. Mm-hmm. So the memorizing process was hellacious for me, but we got it done. And then, of course, with a 5-hour makeup application for the fawn and walking around on stilts. So I had a lot of challenges and complications and worries with the fawn character. Now, here comes the Pale Man scene that you're talking about. That was, a one little sequence in the movie that is probably the most memorable part of the film. And that image of the eyeballs in the hands became posters, T-shirts, memes, YouTube parodies, and magazine covers galore that year. So that is an iconic memory emblazoned into our minds now, that image of the Pale Man. So his backstory, it had saggy skin coming off of me, right? So you could tell that he was probably a big fat guy at some point that had been feeding on children. And who knows how long he's been asleep, waiting for the next child to come in and break the rules and wake him up. So I kind of had to go with that like, basically, when I told you before, let's revisit this. I have to fall in love with every character I play. I have to understand him and be on his team, or I can't play him correctly. So did the Pale Man think, like, I want to ruin lives and and eat children for the fun of watching them die? No, absolutely not.
You're just hungry.
He's hungry. Basic thing is, he wakes up from a very long nap. His skin is saggy, so he's absolutely he needs some nosh.
Right. Who among us has not done the same thing?
Right. Who among us? Right. So here he's got a child in front of him. He's got a pile of shoes about children he's eaten in the past to prove that this is what he does and needs. And so it's food. It's dinner time. That's all he knows. And so there she is. And even though I had a creepy, crawly kind of like a very stiff physical presentation of waking up after this long nap, she could outrun me. But other children have tried before, and they'll wear down, they'll tire eventually. I'll get them, and this is how I know this is how it's going to go. So it was a stress-free thing for the Pale Man. He was just like, oh, good, the lasagna showed up.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm curious, at what point in the preparation process, there's the physical aspect of it, there's the actual application. At what point do you find that little nugget of humanity to it? Is it right in the beginning, or is it different every time?
Well, oh gosh, I think I have to find the humanity in these characters long before that process even starts. I have to emotionally and mentally click into that. Because when I read a script, I get most of the information I need from the writer's intention, how my character interacts with the rest of the film and the rest of the characters. Then I have a meeting with the director, who will give me some notes on idiosyncrasies, quirks they want to see, anything, their interpretation of it. Then I can take all that information that I have now to a dance studio where I'm looking at myself and thinking, okay, how does he stand, walk, lunge? What does the script call for? What's my home posture for this guy? And then I can take that information now to the creature effects shop when all the fittings and costume tests start and the camera tests start. When the things start getting shimmied onto my body and zipped up the back, glued onto my face, that's when I can start telling, okay, well, so if I was practicing my arms way up in the air, flapping like this, but the suit only lets me do this with my wrist to my shoulder, I have to just reroute what his organic physicality is, what his ecosystem is. So that's all there. And I want to get to the place where this character just wakes up in this condition every day. It's not a guy in a suit. So I want to forget that I'm an actor with something heavy and sticky on me, because that will only hamper a performance if that's what you're concentrating on. I have to concentrate on, no, this is a part of my skin now. This is a part of who I am now, and this is how this creature wakes up and feels every day. Therefore, now let's get back inside to the emotional motivations for him. And that's I have to play it from there. I really have to play it from there. A lot of people, a lot of young actors that say, I want to do what you do, and that are gymnasts and dancers, or just like they want to go into stunts. They think that like creatures and monsters are just, if you have really talented elbows, you're going to do great. And like it goes far beyond that. No, I think an acting career like mine has to be because you're an actor first, and because you ingest and take in the character, and from that the physicality will work itself out of your limbs. Yes.
That's interesting, because 1 year after that, you make another big leap. You're the first on-screen Silver Surfer in Rise of the Silver Surfer, and I'm wondering what that experience was like, because that's a different sort of physicality to the role, because that was a lot of non-practical work, if I'm right.
Well, right. That's what they would have you believe. He looked very CG-ish on film. However, I was in a makeup and costume every day that I was on that set. I never wore a leotard with dots on it.
Mm-hmm. I did not know that. I just learned that just now.
Yeah. Little known fact. Weta Digital did do a coating over me, and then did some complete CG from the ground up to match that look. But it started with me in a costume and makeup that was created by the Spectral Motion Company. Jose Fernandez did the sculpture on the body and the face, and that was the most handsome, well-built I've ever been in my life, by the way. He was beautiful. And so that what my biggest challenge with the Silver Surfer, not only did I have to study the comic books, and I really wanted to get this right. I wanted to get his body language and his heroism and his heart onto that screen. And so Stan Lee's original writing and Jack Kirby's original artwork is where I started with that. And all those beautiful balletic poses that the surfer assumes in the comic books, and finding a way to connect them with movement between, and then to motivate that again with who he is and what he wants, was my biggest challenge. And the bigger challenge that came with that was he's got the cosmic power. He has nothing to prove to anybody, and he's the most confident creature I have ever played in my life. Now, Doug Jones is very unconfident, and I talk with my hands a lot because I want to make sure that you're getting the point. Well, the Silver Surfer does not need any of that. So for my biggest challenge was to throttle back all of my natural instincts to tilt my head a lot and to move my head when I'm talking and to get my hands up while I'm trying to make a point.
The same way. Yeah.
I could rest in the fact that my eye contact with you and my voice are enough, right? Yeah. So I think in the end we pulled it off. Hopefully.
Oh, very much so. And I don't know how much you're aware of the overall machinations of what's happening, but because of all the studios combining, there is the possibility of the Silver Surfer returning to the silver screen.
I've heard talk. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if you had advice, if you had sort of what you'd like to see from a hypothetical new Silver Surfer, what that would be.
I wouldn't know where to begin. Yeah, because I did it under the umbrella of Fox Studios, 20th Century Fox, and if Marvel were to put their under their studio now, I don't know if they need to start back from the beginning again and introduce him again. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm advice free. I think there's a lot of comic book geeks out there that would have many better ideas than I do.
Unless they just hire you again. Unless they just bring you back.
Or they could just bring me. Yeah. Or they could. But now, mind you, I'm 60 now, so and I'm not.
Extremely fair.
No, I'm still quite physically agile. Still work out a lot, but I think if I was a studio head, I wouldn't look for me first. I think I don't know.
Fair, extremely fair. 2009. There was talks. I believe Guillermo was doing a Frankenstein, and he just sort of said that you would be Frankenstein's monster. And I kind of love that story because it sounded like you were just like, well, if he says it, it must be true. It was sort of an unofficial thing. And obviously 1,000 things have changed since then. But I've always been curious what a Doug Jones Frankenstein's monster would look like. Is that something you've thought of? Is that sort of... Well,
at the time, if you've heard this story before, then you know that I heard about this on the red carpet of the Hellboy 2 premiere. Mm-hmm. I was being interviewed by a print journalist at the very end of the line, just ready to go in and watch the movie. Mm-hmm. And he said, Doug, I just talked to Guillermo, and he said he's going to make his own Frankenstein movie. What do you think about that? I'm like, I think that's a great idea. No one better to tell the story than him. And I know that's a beloved property that he grew up wanting, that inspired his career. So that's perfect. He said, well, that's not all. I asked him who he wanted for his monster, and he said, you. I'm like, so that's when I think I wet my pants and thought, like, this is the first I'm hearing about it. But Guillermo's happy to talk to a journalist about it. So I did confirm with Guillermo the next day, and for sure, yeah. And he said, yeah, no, that's all in the works. Okay, and this is 2008, so it's been talked about even longer. So as far as I knew, it was in development at Universal Studios. But then I think again, this is me guessing. Again, these decisions are all above Doug Jones' pay grade. But I believe Guillermo was working. This was in development for a couple of years, and then the idea to do what Marvel's doing, where there's an entire Universal Monsters universe, where you set up the stories so they can interplay with each other and make guest appearances in each other's movies and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I believe that new era was going to start with the new Mummy movie that Tom Cruise was a part of. Does that sound right?
Yeah. It was the Dark Universe. It was a big thing that never.
The Dark Universe, right. And but I'm just, my guess would be, and again, I have no authority to say this, but my guess would be that Guillermo probably wanted to make a standalone movie that was just his piece of art that would be an homage to the book. and to the original film. But that's just my guess. But so I have not heard hide nor hair of that idea since. But I would, again, if offered, I would kill to play. Well, anything Guillermo does, I'm happy. He knows I'll say yes to whatever, and then I'll find out about what's the story later. That's fine. He's the one director I trust with whatever he offers me.
Over the years, has it ever, just maybe when you're alone, it pops into your head how you would interpret Frankenstein's monster? Because to me, I feel like your casting would be it's not what people picture physically.
No, it's not. Right. That was my first thought too. Is I'm not the big, the big, broad, big-boned, lumbering Frankenstein that you have in mind. But it was told me that Guillermo is a huge fan of Bernie Wrightson and a friend of Bernie Wrightson at the time. And Bernie had done artwork. He had illustrated. There's an illustrated version of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein out there, and all of the images of Frankenstein's monster in that's what he was going to pattern my look after, which was more emaciated, a little skinnier, a little with more drawn, little more pathetic looking, and yet had an unnatural physical prowess and an unnatural athleticism to him. But he was sewn together with spare parts of a couple of different bodies, and very bony face and very long, stringy, drawn hair. And yeah, so I never went through a makeup test myself for it, but I did go to the creature shop that was Spectrum Ocean was developing the look for him at the time. This is back in 2000, maybe 9 or 10. That I was in the creature shop for something else. And Mike Elizalde, the owner of the shop, said, "I got to show you something." And he unveiled this head and shoulders bust of me with this monster makeup built on it. And it was like, I honestly, my eyes welled up. It was so hauntingly beautiful. And it did pay reverence to Bernie Wrightson's artwork, and also it gave you a different looking Frankenstein monster than what you're used to. Yeah.
What could have been?
Yeah.
I'm going to jump way forward now because I'm already way over our time, but I'm going to jump forward to Shape of Water. That's such an interesting case, even after all this time where you've been doing these roles. I'd argue it's such a tough job, because even after all this time, you arguably have to make this monster feel the most human and a romantic interest. This is I don't know how many monsters you've tried to make have an air of sexiness to them, but this had to factor that in. And I'm wondering, day one, you're told this, you're like, how am I going to do this?
That first conversation with Guillermo was an interesting one. We were actually working on Crimson Peak at the time, so this was a couple years before we got to make the movie. He said, "No, Dougie, you're going to be the romantic leading man of this movie." And I was like, "Wait, did you just not tell me I was a fish man?" So how did those two things go?
It's both. It's both at the same time. Yeah.
Interesting. So we're not sure how I was going to pull that off, but so I really, but if anyone was going to pull it off, it would be director Guillermo del Toro. And when you think about it, most of those classic Universal monsters that we were just talking about a minute ago, all had some kind of a love interest or a hint of love or a yearning for love in some way, and never got to complete it. Right? The monster always had, a damsel in distress, and there was often a connection that was made, or even like King Kong, you have Fay Ray actually finding some sympathy for the big hairy fella, right? So there's often a connection made somehow with these monsters that you think, oh, could that? But it's a love that could never be, because look at them, and they're from different worlds. It would never work. Well, Del Toro, he has said publicly that when he saw the creature from the Black Lagoon as a kid, he was kind of pissed off that they didn't get together in the end. It was like, wait, they just invaded his home and then
shot him.
Yeah, he never got the girl. So he wanted to write the movie where the monster does get the girl, and so he created this beautiful story. And now Sally Hawkins and I had the task of her playing a mute character that doesn't speak verbal dialogue, me playing a, amphibian man from South America who does not speak any words, and the two of us have to fall in love with each other non-verbally. So that was the interesting task. But here's what the blessing that Guillermo gave us with some rehearsal time. If you remember in The Shape of Water, there was a fantasy dance sequence where in Sally Hawkins' mind, she goes off into one of those black and white musical movies that she's been watching on TV with her neighbor all the time. And so now she's the starring role in her own little fantasy musical movie. And it's a big dance number that with a full band behind us. And so we had to rehearse, we were all terrified, like, I'm going to be in a fish suit with webbed feet. And can we even pull this off? So the rehearsals began. We filmed in Toronto. We got there about a month early, so we could go to the dance studio every day and get familiar with not only the dance steps but with each other, and could sort of when you are literally dancing together, it kind of helps the dance that you do on camera as actors anyway. Sally and I built a trust up with each other and a familiarity with each other. We could sort of predict where the other person was going to lean or move next. And that came into play in our scenes that weren't dancing, right? And a trust was there. When you're dancing with a dance partner, dips and lifts and things, you have to trust that the other one's going to be there for you. And so that trust also worked its way into all of our other scenes where we're in the bathtub, or she's coming to visit me at lunchtime and giving me eggs for the first time, or whatever. All those scenes played out as a result of a connection that Sally Hawkins and Doug Jones actually made day to day for a month during dance rehearsals. And even on our breaks during dance rehearsal, we would sit on the floor together, and we were both going through our own personal terror that we were going to get this movie wrong, and we knew how important it was artistically to Guillermo and to us, and there was a lot of weight on both of us, and so we could share our fears and insecurities with each other. So we bonded during that time. So all of that was very, very valuable in us playing our nonverbal love affair on film.
And I'd love for you to take me to the night of those Oscars, because I even, as someone who loves the movie, even the people who love the movie, I've watched a lot of the Oscars, and I thought, it's just not what you want. And then, Guillermo wins Best Director, the movie wins Best Picture. And I'm wondering, just what's the moment like where you're like, wow, they accepted our beautiful monster romance as the best movie of the year?
Yeah. Well, with the overall heartfelt message of the film, and when Guillermo first described the movie to me, we'd already been through the Oscars with Pan's Labyrinth by that time, right? The Pan's Labyrinth had 6 nominations, 3 wins, and when he was describing, he didn't even have that meeting we had when he first told me what he wanted me to play in Shape of Water. Didn't have a script yet. He was just telling me the story, like, fireside chat, story time. And I walked away from that meeting thinking, this is his next trip to the Oscars. And I totally called it. With 13 nominations and 4 wins, including, like you said, Best Picture and Best Director. It was kind of like I felt it all felt justified to me. Like yes, this film did deserve it. And at the same time, it's like, wow, the Academy voted for this film.
Exactly, yeah.
Because it did not fit in the typical box of their voting patterns. Yeah, to have a monster on the cover of that movie, that Best Picture movie. I don't know if that's ever been done, but I don't know.
A monster movie winning Best Picture, I was like, no. Like, as a lifelong monster movie fan, I was like, no. It's incredible it was nominated, but no way. And then it did, and it was such a strange night, but it was such a wonderful night because, like you said, it kind of felt like almost like validation. It was like, oh yeah, that was the best movie of the year.
Yeah, well, it was a validation and a pat on the back to all of us who live and breathe and play in that genre. Yeah.
So that takes us up until right now with Star Trek Discovery. And season 3 started 2 weeks ago, 1 week ago.
Two episodes have aired now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So last night was the second one.
And there's a huge change. The show has blasted off into the future. And I'm wondering what your, because it was so entrenched in one timeline for 2 seasons. I'm wondering what your reaction is to the show is going to be massively changed as season 3 starts.
Yeah. Well, we massively changed. We're boldly going where no Star Trek series has gone before, and that was a permanent jump to the future, 930 years. So not just a couple of years. We went to a whole new era with a new set of rules, new worlds and new customs, new everything. What this did for the writers, though, we were playing 10 years before the original series in the first 2 seasons. Now we've jumped way ahead of all of the series. So we started having to adhere to canon and to make sure that everything that we were doing didn't affect later series and decisions and canon and storyline that have already been filmed and already played. We had to fit in with that. Now they've jumped ahead to where the writers have freedom to create from the ground up now. So that's exciting. That's exciting, and we'll explore new worlds and new creatures and new and of course the nostalgia of all the species that already. We're going to visit them again, but they might have different relationships with each other than what you know. So it's all exciting to see how the universe, how the galaxy had changed in those 930 years. Yeah.
Is there a sense that this major change is sort of how it bodes for the future of the show in general? They sort of is this change going to be permanent, and does this sort of open up the idea that the show will continue to evolve as it goes on, season to season, even episode to episode, and stuff like that? Because it is interesting to me that season 1 and season 2 are what they are, and then the show was like, boom, we're changing things, and I'm wondering how that bodes for the future of the show.
Yeah, again, those decisions are above my pay grade. Yeah, that's the showrunners and the writers are the ones who are keeping it very fresh that way. We're unlike other Star Trek series in the past in that we, for a couple of reasons, really. It seems like we're more overall arc story minded for the binge watcher, as opposed to the bottle episode, start, middle, and end in each episode. There's much more of an overarching story that you follow from week to week. The other thing that has been that our captain's chair has been a musical chair. We've had different butts in it, and the lead of our show is not the captain. The lead of our show has been Michael Burnham, played by Sonequa Martin Green, and you're following her path from she starts as a first officer, commits mutiny, gets a setback, and then we're watching her climb through the ranks again. So that's all kind of unique and new. So this jump to the future kind of fits in that whole unique new, let's do something daring and different with this series model that they've made for us, and it's been working. By and large, it's been working. So I think that bodes well. I don't know. Who knows how many seasons we have in us? I don't know. And what will they do to make each one bring that new, fresh, unique twist to it? I have no idea. That's again. I'm glad we have writers for that, not me.
Exactly. But you specifically, your character is taking on much more of a leadership role. And it's interesting because I feel like the physicality, you've brought a different physicality to the character as the character's changed. And I'm wondering what this big change in season 3 has meant for your performance specifically.
In season 2, you saw that's where I went through my change, where I was living in fear with threat ganglia that would spring out of my neck every so often. And now that's gone. I've gone through a change called Vihari, where, we used to think that was the end of our lives, and that's actually just puberty. Basically, we're going into our adolescence now, and I have hundreds of years left to live. So with that was a surprise to me when the writers, when I got that episode, I thought, oh, are they killing me off? No, they're not killing me off. Oh, this is a big change, because I had patterned and ingested this character into my soul as a fear-driven species. And now that innate fear is gone, it did change some things. It did change his decision-making and his posturing and how he interacts with other crew members and whatnot. It's a bit bolder, a bit more decisive. So he's now, that all happened in season 2. Now that we jump ahead to season 3, he has to continue that with his confidence has to remain intact because he right now is the acting captain. He was first officer under the tutelage of Captain Pike in season 2, who was borrowed from the Starship Enterprise. At the end of season 2, he goes back to the Enterprise, and we're left with an empty captain's chair again. So as first officer, of course, I step into that as acting captain for temporarily. But we had a huge task ahead of us. When that happened, we were now jumping through a wormhole in time up to the future. And so the question remains, and episodes 1 and 2 did not answer this yet, so this is yet to come. What's going to happen to our captain's chair permanently? We don't know, because it was decided that that Saru, my character, and Michael Burnham, we kind of shared a glance across the bridge, and when Captain Pike was saying we have to decide about the captain's chair, and I said, let's get through this time jump first, then we can discuss the captaincy. So and I threw a look to Burnham, she threw a look back to me, so it's an understanding the two of us are probably equally well qualified for it, equally desirous of it, but equally also desirous that the other person get it, because our relationship has grown and gotten so close and so brotherly, sisterly, that we really do appreciate and respect each other so much that I want that position for her as much as she wants it for me. So that's yet to be decided. So now that we've jumped through the wormhole, the other question remains: are we going to find the Federation? A, are we going to find them? B, if we do, what condition will they be in? Will they be in a state of disrepair? Will they be up and running? Will they want to assign us a captain of their own from the future that understands the world we're in now better? Or do we have to self-govern that and assign a captain amongst ourselves? So that's still also yet to be decided. Now, but in episode 1, it was shown that the Federation has kind of been missing. If they're out there, they're well hidden. So we will need to it probably will have to come down to Michael Burnham and Saru deciding among ourselves. So that's yet to be explored.
Stay tuned for that.
Exactly. So stay tuned for sure. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a surprise to a lot of people. Season 4 was not only confirmed, but it's shooting in a week.
We start filming November 2nd. Yeah.
Incredible. Obviously, you can't tell me much about it because we're right in the center of season 3, obviously.
Right.
But I'm just wondering, was there that same sense of when you were told how deep into however much you know about the future of the show, was there that same sense of surprise? Was that same sense of, again, the show not specifically reinventing itself, but just like, oh wow, the show is continuing, like you said, to go boldly into new space?
Yeah, well, it seemed to me like the old days of television, a show would not announce a renewal for the next season until the current season was either halfway done or almost done or well done. So for us to be prepping and announcing a new season, because we knew that it was going to be filming long before season 3 started airing. So I guess I don't know what, again, those decisions are above my pay grade, and I don't know what goes into making that decision, how they decide it's a show's profitability when they haven't really tested the season that's current yet. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that works. I'm just grateful that they have the faith in us, that the network has the faith in us, and that the fan base has stuck with us to warrant that kind of faith.
So I'm going to ask you one more question, because we were supposed to go a half hour. It is now over an hour. So thank you for being so gracious.
It's my pleasure. No.
But I'm just wondering, when you sort of think about your future as an actor, is there any desire to have a cutoff point for the prosthetic work? Is there a desire to sort of move into a phase where you're only doing acting as Doug Jones?
Yeah, I don't know that there's going to be a hard cutoff point. But when I was filming The Shape of Water, I was 56 years old at the time, and it was physically, I was in the best shape of my life. I still am. I kept that going, but just the breathing in of toxic fumes, and the not being able to use my hands all day because I'm in webbed fingers with claws, and I can't even go to the bathroom for myself, and I have to and there was no back trap door. So it was all a big,
Yeah.
Conundrum on how do I pull this off. I was thinking then, like, you know what, maybe this will be my last rubber job. But then I got offered Star Trek Discovery. And it's like, well, I can't turn that down.
Yeah.
So so I think if anything, once Star Trek Discovery is done, I think I will just I might just need to get a bit more picky choosy. With there has to be something in it for me that's above and beyond that'll make it worth it to continue doing monsters and creatures that involve such a process. I do want to explore more humans. I still, way outside the genre. My dream job is to play the dad of a grown woman or fella on a Hallmark Channel movie, and give some great advice on their love life while I'm swirling a cup of cocoa and wearing a Christmas
we'll
sweater.
float that out there. This is that interview. We'll float that out.
There you go.
Amazing. Well, again, thank you so much for being so generous for your time. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. This has been a pleasure. Again, I can't thank you enough for again, this is supposed to be a half-hour interview. We're now over an hour. So thank you so much.
And also, thank you, by the way. But I do want to put an addendum on that, Are the Creatures Done talk. I don't want anyone to ever feel, and please make this note, that any discomforts or challenges I've gone through with the makeup and process is all because I have a love for the art and the finished product. That's what's been motivating all of it. Is that I love the results. I love what we're looking at. I love, as an audience member, watching what we made. That makes it all worth it, right? So as I get older, it's just like I'll be a bit more choosy about what I say yes to. That's all.
Oh no, and again, I think it comes across in your actual work. I think that love for the genre, that love for the process, it always comes across in your performance. And I think,
well, thank you.
Hopefully that will maintain that will continue.
Thank you, Benny.
Yeah, no, again, thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much.